So welcome to a Bluebell wood, and you can see that I've made a little start, and you might wonder what all these masking tape is and long trunks and things, but it's going to be some silver birch. So we've got obviously some silver birches. We're going to have a carpet of bluebells hopefully, and a little bit of background. The main thing about this picture is going to be the light, so it's going to be the light direction, and you can see where I've put the arrow, which is just here, and the light is coming from this direction, so I'm going to have some lovely light on the side of the silver birches. I'm going to put some wax on those as well, just to get a nice little bit of texture, showing you really today how easy it is to do this sort of painting. Probably giving you a few too many tips, but I'm sure you don't mind. So I've got your masking tape on. I've also put a little bit of masking fluid. So this is the masking fluid that I use, quite like this one. And I've applied it with an old brush. And if you've watched before, you know that with the brush, for goodness sake, don't use a decent sable, use an old brush. My old brush, this is my old brush, you can see it's in a bit of a state, but it's quite ideal because it gives a nice sort of loosely textured background when I apply the masking fluid. So I've got masking fluid on here, a little bit there, tiny touch in the background as well, just to give light. So it's all about hopefully creating lots of light in this picture. So, and then I've very, very lightly rubbed a tiny bit of wax, and it's just candle wax, just a tiny bit. I'm actually going to use some candle wax on the tree trunks, so that's why that's there. And then I've got just a few brushes. This at the moment is my favourite brush. It's just a very cheap, it's fairly cheap, £7.60 from Heat and Cooper in Grasmere, and it's a Chinese brush, but it's a Chinese sable, and it doesn't look like it's got a nice point, but it has a lovely point, you can see. So it's a lovely brush is this. So that's going to be the main brush I'm going to use. I've also got a nice little round old sable brush that I use to soften, and a rigger. And this is a number 4 rigger. It's a Kolinsky sable rigger, and I've got a palette knife to use, and an old sponge that I might use. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that or not. And then just in case it all gets starts to dry out, I just have a water spray, and this little water spray is just picked up from Boots, and that's about it. Colours, again, using a very sort of limited palette. I do quite like to keep to primaries and mix up my own greens. I'm not a fan of sap green. I like to use lots of yellows, blues and pinks and reds. So cobalt blue, opera rose, Windsor blue, maybe a touch of even ultramarine blue, Windsor yellow. I've got a little bit of Aurelian yellow. I've got a bit of cadmium yellow possibly, and a touch of brilliant orange, which I might just put as well. That might just help with the greens, because sometimes it can just look a little bit too green. So off we go. So I'm going to first of all do the background, and then I'm going to start and take off some of the masking tape to reveal the light, and then start to paint in some of these trees. So it's, to start with, it's going to be a very wet background of colours just merging together. First of all, and I want to create just over here a nice little bit of light. And you might, I don't know if you can see, but I've actually got a tiny little cross there. I've got a cross here, a cross there, one here, and one somewhere around here. And those are my golden sections. I find it quite useful for when I'm painting, that to sort of tell me where ideally things might be pleasing to the eye. So that's where my golden sections are, just to keep an eye out on them. So first of all, I'm just going to mix up a tiny little bit of the Aurelian yellow and it's going to be just into this background, so a nice pale just into that background. So that's where I want my light, so where the tunnel of the light is. So it's a nice colour is that. It's a nice lemony yellow. It's a cool yellow, it's not a warm yellow. So we just pop in a little bit on. And you might, I don't know if you can just see, this is one which I've actually painted a couple of years ago. And so I'm using it as a little bit of a guide, something that I want to create. Okay? I should have mentioned that before, but I forgot. So I'm just popping on this yellow, and just a touch of the orange as well, just to change it slightly, to give a little bit of warmth. So these are just placed on. They're not. I'm not thinking too much about these. And then just put a little bit of the cobalt turquoise. Oops. It's a nice colour, isn't it? So I'm going where the masking tape is, and if you can see as well, it changes to a lovely pale green when it's mixed with the Aurelian. So just getting lots of nice colour into this background, thinking that it's distant trees and things. So this is just the first shade going on. So it's nice and pale. You see, it doesn't, when it mixes with the brilliant orange, it doesn't give it as nice a green. So just thinking as well a little bit more, maybe a little bit of cobalt blue. Touch of that Aurelian. So because it's a bluey green I'm wanting, I add the blue first. If it was a yellowy green, I'd use the yellow first. Keeping that nice sort of light around here. Touch of Windsor blue as well, just to thinking as well that I've got some. I want the lighter sections. On this side of the silver birches. Give it a little spray. So that was the Windsor blue. So I'm moving the brush around as well. Right, and sort of maybe a few more sort of a little bit stronger colours as well. I'm just going to go with the Windsor yellow, touch of the cobalt blue. That's a bright colour, isn't it? Even it'll show up, especially here with the light. Right. Just swapping over to a rigger and a bit of ultramarine blue and some opera rose. This is not that much water. So I was thinking that there's maybe some trees in the background. Branches and bits and pieces going on. So this is all background. It's all going to be loose. We're not really going to notice this that much. They're all just coming out of the bluebells. I'm not sure how long they're going to last this year though, because we haven't had that much rain in the Lake District. And I'm not going to get to see some of my favourite ones, because it just means going in the car. So just painting a few more of these. So you've got some nice little textures going on back there. Right, so that's that little area done. So what I want to do now is I want to, while that's drying a touch, and yeah, just want to dry a little bit, I'm going to put some colour on into the front. And we're going to start with a nice little bit of this Aurelian yellow. Lovely and pale. Now what I would say to yourselves when you do it is go and get some clean water. But I just want to quickly get this going. So just taking this across just a little bit. So it's very, very pale, is this. And then I want to get a fairly light bluebell colour. So I'm going to start first of all with the opera rose, because they're not actually that blue, are bluebells. They're fairly blue, and then I'm just going to use a little bit of the cobalt blue as well. So it's cobalt blue and opera rose to start with. That's quite a nice shade. So this is just going to go into the background. It's just mixed a tiny little bit with some of the yellow, but it's alright. Touch more blue. That's better maybe. Let's touch of water to it so it's lightened it up. So the water just lightens up your colours. Get some lovely mad brushwork going on here. And this is going to be the first wash, because we're going to do a couple of washes onto this. So this is going to dry and madly getting this down. Not really resembling bluebells yet, is it? So just sort of a little bit thinking along the lines here, just a touch more colour. So it's cobalt blue and opera rose again, a bit more pink. Right, now we're going to get some lovely juicy greens. a touch of that orange just to soften up some of the, because I know that when I get some of the greens going, I need something to make it as green as it is. I'm not a massive green fan, can you tell? That's quite nice. That's what I wanted. So the mauve and the green quite complement each other quite well. So this was Windsor Blue and Aurelian Yellow. It's not making sense yet, is the painting. It'll hopefully come together, she says, with great sort of thought that it will. Forever the optimist. And some nice yellow in there, actually, some pure yellow as well. Just a few splashes. And that yellow will hopefully make some of the lilacs sing, which is what we're wanting. Is it resembling a bluebell wood? Are you thinking of going crazy? So you get all sorts of lovely yellow flowers in a wood. Right, so this is all mingling in quite nicely. And right, just having a little think. Just put a little bit of darker greens in, just at the moment while it's all still damp. And this is again with the rigger. Quite nice painting loosely like this. I don't quite know where it's going to go, which hopefully it's going in the right direction, we'll see. Right, so that's that. I'm going to now just take off a couple of these this masking tape, and hopefully it's not bled too much underneath. So it's just normal B&Q masking tape. I'm wondering slightly what I'm going to do when I've run out. So I'm just getting this up. So I'm wanting some of the furthest away trees that I want to take off. I'm not going to take these ones off yet, it's the furthest away. I'll just get this one as well. And hopefully start to make them look like trees, because you're probably thinking they don't look anything like a tree. Just catching that edge. So the masking tape is torn into shapes. It's not just straight edges. So I use torn edges to give little bits of shape, so it's a little bit different. So I'll just get this one off. Right, so let's make make these look like trees, shall we? And oh, I forgot to mention, I'm probably going to use this brush. So it's just a nice flat synthetic. Just take out that little bit there. Soften it in. And the same on that one as well, and that one. So we've got the light coming in this direction. We want a darker, maybe a darker colour on one side. And I'm just going to use a little bit of that orangey actually. So that was that burnt orange, brilliant orange. I'm just going to put a little bit of this on this. These are in the far distance, we don't need to worry too much about getting too much detail. Just a little bit of colour on that little bit there. So that you can hear the paper as well. The paper actually helps the painting. So just mix up a nice little bit of darker shade. Yeah. Touch of cobalt blue, a little bit of opera rose, and just to take off the brightness of it, just a touch of yellow. So like a bit of a tree. I'm hoping to go out later and find some bluebells. Just bring that down into that little bit. Shape it a little bit. They're starting to come together a little bit, aren't they? And so this one's quite nice. So let's give it a few branches, shall we? Touch of burnt sienna as well. I didn't say about burnt sienna, but we'll use a little bit of burnt sienna as well. It's just blending in quite nicely, is that? I'm not too bothered if it goes over there, it's fine. Isn't it lovely? I do enjoy painting this sort of thing. I don't quite know how it's going to turn out. Now that one might have a little bit of a branches. So this is Eureka, brilliant for trees and things. So that was just one that I just thought, oh, do you know, that could be a little bit more of that tree, that back bit. Find my way there. Right, so that's just a few little background trees put in, and I'm going to, while this is still damp, I'm just going to put a touch more colour behind the trees, sort of casting a little bit of a shadow, because the shadows will be this way. So a little bit of ultramarine, sorry, not ultramarine, cobalt blue, opera rose, touch more colour, so it's quite a lot stronger and on a similar tone, so just sort of just just behind. And again, I'm not too bothered if it bleeds a little bit through, it's fine. Right, so and that's, can you see that's just ending a little bit? I think it wants something, don't want to end there. Maybe you want to, just a little bit of that burnt orange on it, just to give it a little bit of light. It looks a little bit bare. That's way better. And by using your fingernails, you can get some nice sort of light sometimes and some branches going across. But if it's dry, it doesn't work. Right, so let's do another couple of trees. So I'm going to do these 2 trees, yeah? Look, you're not too bored with this. Is it starting to come together? See, this bottom section is all just drying, doing its own thing. I'll come to that later. So I'm just taking these off. It's like taking plasters off. There we go. So we're getting down through the wood. So what we want to do is we want to overlap a little bit. So I'll hopefully overlap that and send that further back. So I'm just going to do these 2 trees. Similar sort of way. A little bit of the, I might just put a touch of Aurelian yellow into that little bit of burnt, into the brilliant orange. Determined to call it burnt orange for some reason. A touch of that burnt orange. Oops, that's a little bit too much. Give it a little wash. What the orange will do, because I'm going to put a touch of blue shadow into some of these trees, the orange will complement the blue. So it's quite good at times working with complementary colours. So thinking of the light on this side. Touch of colours into that, and it's just that Bluebell colour. It just, sometimes I just think that if you use colours all over, they just can complement everything, and it becomes a harmonising picture. A little bit of ultramarine blue. This is quite a nice dark. The opera rose and the burnt sienna. You know, sometimes your brushes can just do quite a nice amount of work for you. Just getting the right sort of brushes, and brushes that you feel confident with. When I used to do the courses, the amount of people that used to come on the courses with one of these fan brushes, and I bet everybody has a fan brush, and for me, I just cannot get away with using them. It used to just come out as a silly sort of brush mark. You didn't need these fancy, all these fancy brushes. I think if you have I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 really good, decent brushes. A bit of burnt sienna. Yeah, this is down here, it's all quite lovely. I quite like that. Let's take that across. over there. So by taking the branches over the trees that we've just painted, oh, that was a bit of a blob, it pushes the other trees into the background. Let's figure out this little blob. Make it into something. Make it into the tree somehow. Not quite, that's better. Get some light into it. So I'm taking off the paint in a way. Yeah, a little bit of dark on the bottom, just down here. And I'm just going to run some yellow into that, pure yellow. You get a lot of nice, that's better. You know, you've got the moss on the bottoms of the trees often. And you start to, everybody's hopefully just starting to look at things a little bit differently when we're going out. I'm noticing the things that I often never see. When you start to paint trees, you see how many lovely textures and colours are actually in the bark. Right, so what I'm going to do is just have a little look. Just pop a little bit of green, so just bringing so that's a stronger section of green that we had before. It's going together, isn't it? Softening some of these little areas. Right, so at the moment we've just got sort of 4 sort of trees to do. I'm just thinking that wants a little bit of dark just on the bottom of there, just to bring it down a touch. Let's bring this one down a little bit more to there. That's better. I'm just making a tree. See if we can anywhere in the background. Get a little bit of something. It looks a little bit of yellow. And then I'm going to put my brush down because I'm starting to fiddle. Right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry and then we're going to come back, do these front trees and do some of the bluebells. Alright, hope you've enjoyed it.